Hello and welcome to another episode of the Radiant Achiever Show. Today's guest is an amazing woman named Joann Jaffe. I'm going to share a little bit about her before I bring her on and we dive in. Joann has created the nonprofit OG Yoga to address trauma, to make yoga accessible to San Diego's underserved communities, and to intervene in the complex process of trauma. OG Yoga offers a variety of programs to address this. Joann is also a professor at Pacific College of Health and Science, adjunct faculty, Introduction to Yoga for Specialty Populations. Joann is truly a woman who has a heart of service. She has worked in the homeless prisoner re-entry sector for 10 years as Director of Development for Second Chance. She's witnessed the painful cycle of poverty, drugs, incarceration, and homelessness. She felt that a holistic yoga component would offer a forgiving approach to help affect positive change with homeless, addiction, violence, and prison problems. From Second Chance, Joann worked at San Diego Jewish Academy as Director of School Advancement. The Academy's students in a hurry-up world could benefit from learning yoga techniques, self-regulation, relaxation, and inner fulfillment. Again, this woman is such a heart-centered, community-oriented woman. I know we're going to get a lot of amazing information and wisdom from her. Please join me in welcoming Joann Jaffe. So I am so excited to have you here. Joann, welcome to the Radiant Achiever Show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So Joann and I, for everyone watching, are a relatively new connection. We have a joint friend, colleague that introduced us, I believe a year ago when I attended one of the yoga events in Tambra's backyard and got to know more about OG Yoga and just a little bit of who you are. So I know today is all about a deep dive into you and your journey of saying yes to your callings. So does that sound good? And shall we dive in?
Yes, please.
Okay, perfect. So I'd love to start. I start every conversation with the same question. What calling are you pursuing, Joann, and why is this important to you?
That's a big question.
It's a big one.
Yeah, thank you for asking it. I came into the nonprofit sector after a couple decades in the corporate sector in banking.
Oh.
And yeah, big switch. Big switch. And I was a fundraiser for an organization. It still exists, Second Chance. And over the course of 10 years there, I got my experience, or what I like to say, boots on the ground with San Diego's homelessness, violence, addiction, and incarceration for both youth and adults, men and women. And by the end of 10 years, I was raising a whole lot of money. And the problems of addiction, which if not cured or healed, because it is a medical condition, leads to homelessness, abuse, and incarceration and death.
Wow.
So and what I noticed was at the beginning of my 10 years, it wasn't a topic that a lot of people want to talk about. At the end of my 10 years, everywhere I went, it didn't matter if I was in Rancho Santa Fe or in Southeast San Diego, somebody would pull me aside and say, can you help my son? Can you help my daughter? Or I have a
Wow.
friend, knowing that it's someone very close to them. So this addiction thing crossed over all economic lines, all skin colors, all ages. And I started to scratch my head because I was raising a whole lot of money for a great program. And the problems kept getting worse. So, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Yes.
I'd suit up every day, get to the batter's box and go home when it got dark, and I wasn't really having an effect.
Wow.
So at about that time, I got recruited to work for an affluent day school up in North County. And I said to them, and I'm sorry if this is taking long, but
no, it's perfect. This is important stuff. Yeah.
I said, you have the wrong person. I work for the underdog. I go in and create justice and transformation. And he said, well, Joann, do you think you're going to solve that in your lifetime? Our social problems. I said, well, no, of course not. And he said, who do you think will? I said, the youth. And I go, where do I sign up? And in my 4 years there, believe it or not, there was something that was consistent with some of the things I had seen at Second Chance with kids: anxiety, depression, eating disorders, suicide, overdoses. And I went, whoa, this isn't good. And so after 4 years of that, I decided to take a sabbatical, because it was really in my heart that something's missing.
Yeah.
And so during that time, I realized that I really miss social services. And my passion for the last 20 years had been yoga. And I felt that it provided a transformation for me that led to physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being.
Wow.
And yeah, it was huge. And so I thought, well, what's at the bottom of substance abuse and violence and choosing homelessness? We weren't born with homelessness or incarceration. And then it dawned on me as I got quiet that it was trauma. That nobody in 2015 was addressing trauma.
Wow. What a powerful realization.
It was. When the light bulb went off, I kind of fell out of my lotus position. Wait, whoa!
You got into warrior pose.
Then I went to my warrior sequence and got. So I sat down with individuals who were important in my life and had mentored me, and I sat down individually with those individuals and told them about this concept, and they said yes.
Wow.
Yes. And then I created a dream advisory council, and I sat down with each of those individuals, and they said yes. Wow. And then just prior to that point, let me back up a little bit. There was a big lawsuit in San Diego in North County, in Encinitas to be specific.
Oh.
Yeah, the parents of that community were suing the Encinitas School District for offering yoga to children.
No way.
Yes. And as much as it, to my disbelief, because at that time there was a feeling that yoga was somehow attached to religion. Misconception. And so I was studying and waiting for the judge's ruling, which took 2 years. And that occurred in the spring of 2015. I picked up the Union Tribune, we used to read the newspaper.
Yes.
The headline said, judge says yoga is not a religion.
Wow.
can be part of a school day for children. So I went, okay. And that's when I
Green
moved forward.
light.
Yeah, that's when I had the green light. So that's how it started.
Wow.
And we just turned 6 years old.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. And I know we're taping this the day before a big event that is occurring, your 2-day Taste of OG
Yes.
Yoga. I'm so excited to be a
Thank
sponsor
you.
of it. And I will be zooming in on Sunday. I'm traveling on Saturday, but I will be zooming in from Mexico for some of the sessions on
Wonderful.
Sunday.
Yeah,
Yes.
anyone who wants, you can go to Eventbrite, a taste of OG Yoga, and find out more about it. We're really
Yes.
excited to give everyone a bite of OG Yoga and the diversity
Yes.
of our instructors and our classes.
In fact, I'm going to clip this or have my assistant help me clip this so I can put this on my Instagram and or my social media.
Right.
This little segment here. So, okay. So I want to unpack a couple of things from that. A couple of things popped up. One is a theme that I see often, a theme that occurs is that all of our life experiences put us in the perfect place for that next thing. So it sounds like all the fundraising that you had done, supporting Second Chance in your corporate days, your love for yoga, your practices in your life, really, things started diverging and all of a sudden you started clicking things together and saw a problem. Not only did you see a problem, but then you found a solution. And how did that feel for you when, whether it was that single light bulb moment or as you started really connecting with, I've got something I can do about this?
I'd say equal measures of ecstatic excitement to fear. An equal measure of why me? Who am I to go out and do this?
Yeah.
There really was this duality, and we always have our shadow side with our
Definitely.
light side. So there was an incredible amount of fear, which I propose is not real.
Yes.
Though I had it of stepping out on that ledge.
Yeah, right.
Social enterprise to market and leaving my old life,
Right.
Whether it was the nonprofit executive leadership role or whether it was the banking executive leadership role, it was, walking out of that suit and those shoes.
Yep. And which is the second piece I wanted to speak to, because again, I love your story. And I had a similar path in that I spent 17 years in corporate America. Information technology was my career of choice. And it was great. And at the same time, I knew there was something more. So when you left corporate and you took the school job, did you feel did it feel like it was your next step, or were you kind of in that incubator of, I'm not quite sure what, where I want to go next or what that bigger contribution I want to make, but I know it wasn't, I've served my time in corporate.
Yes, I got a very strong message. I was lucky enough to be in community banking when community banking was really big in San Diego in the 80s. And I got to, because we had more than 11 branch offices, I got to give away money. Communities that we serve. That was my first taste of, well, what do you mean there are dogs that wear vests that help soldiers, that help policemen? What do you mean? I had no idea about all this work, all this great work. And it actually broke my heart open.
Oh.
And then I was asked, and the president of the community bank asked me to step in for him as fundraiser for a big event in La Jolla, a big annual charity event. And I realized I liked asking for money. I did. I know.
Interesting.
And somebody said to me, nobody likes doing that. You should go
No.
do that.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Very interesting, so and we'll talk a little bit more about when we get into yoga, but this
Yeah,
process of self-inquiry and really listening to who you are and what feels good and what brings you joy is really
yeah.
important. So we sold the bank in the early 90s, and I was lucky enough to be in a position where I could say, okay, you know what? My kids are small. They're 4 and 1 at the time. I said, I'm going to take 10 years.
Mm.
And I'm going to take a 10-year transition. I'm going to set up shop as a consultant for financial institutions and slowly make my way over, see if my skills are compatible with the nonprofit sector.
Oh, interesting.
So for 10 years, I did exactly that.
Wow.
10 years, all my clients were nonprofits. And in fact, it was interesting because my accountant, my CPA said, Joann, you can't sustain a career in the nonprofit sector because you're only going to make 30 to maybe 60% of what you were making in corporate. And I said, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's not, I want to see if I can stretch this out.
Right.
And he said, you'll last 6 years. He did all the numbers, and this is 21 years later.
Good for you. Good for you. Yeah.
So it was at the end of that 10 years that Second Chance said, you know what, we're big enough. We want you in-house, starting a development department just for us. So development means fundraising. So that's when I made the full-time commitment.
Okay.
I left the consulting to be in-house.
Got it. Got it. Wow. Again, this powerful background that you have and the experiences that you gave. But one of the things, and I would love to chat about this, is what I picked up and from what you said is that you were really connected to yourself, whether you call it your intuition, and you talked about that inner listening. I'd love for you to share a bit for everybody on, have you always been that way, or was it part of your journey with yoga that brought you to that point? And I'm asking it for the collective, but also for myself, because I know for me, that was something that I needed to redevelop in myself because I had ignored it for so many years. And it was part of my journey that got me to where I am today. But when I reconnected with it. So I'd love if you could share a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I've come to attach myself to as yogis, we try not to have attachment, but I have attached myself to this sense of either we're living from the inside out or we're living from the outside in. And I had been living from the outside in, and that,
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
same here.
Yeah, I saw you take a big breath there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this transition to living life from the inside out isn't something that we're necessarily taught in the West.
We're not. Nope. No one I knew was taught that way.
Taught to do, not to be.
Yeah.
And so as I started to dive into yoga, mindfulness, and meditation, and got quiet and sat with myself and learned to tolerate discomfort within myself. Yes. And that's what we'll get into. That's what trauma-informed yoga does.
Great.
But once I learned to tolerate my sensation, which wasn't always great, to lean into why am I, being a witness to the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations, what was coming up physically, and staying with it and not judging.
Yes.
Becoming a witness.
Not judging. Yes.
It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. I don't have to put on my seatbelt and attach myself to an emotional ride. I can witness it. And then I can ask myself questions. And this is a process that takes a lot of self-study and self-practice.
A lifelong journey.
It's a lifelong journey. The layers are, are always there.
Yes.
We get
So
triggered with different
definitely. And I've noticed for myself as I continue to evolve and take on bigger, I have bigger callings that come to me. I am being more visible in certain ways. Then there's new little triggers that happen, and and I say it's time. It's coming up because it's my time now to clear that out. It's not here to stop me. It's coming up for me to now release it. And I see you nodding your head. That's good. Yeah. So this journey of yoga and meditation and mindfulness, I so resonate with it. How did all of what you, who you were, because of those practices, how did that help you first in facing the obstacles that came up when you started OG yoga? And then how did that translate into the type of work that you do with your programs in OG yoga?
Yes, that's a great question. So I was diagnosed with breast cancer at a relatively young age, in my early 40s. And I had 2 young children, and I was going through a very traumatic divorce. So 3 months into the traumatic divorce, I felt a lump, and I'd been carrying in my wallet a mammogram, ticket to go get my first mammogram. Oh. And I just thought, the way my luck's running.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So sure enough, it was a malignant tumor. And I started really spending many hours a day in meditation and connecting with the tumor.
Wow.
And inviting it to dissipate in the form of pink. I just saw pink leaving my body. And I also decided that I was going to beat cancer because my children were only at the time 9 and 6, and it wasn't my time to go. So we did, I had a successful surgery and recovered. And my physical practice helped me with my physical recovery as well. The ability
I can imagine.
Yeah, after having lymph nodes taken. And so that was, built testimony to, this practice is something that's a part of me.
Wow.
And when I went to Second Chance, I think it was that was 2000. At the time, there was a yoga studio that's no longer here, and it was in La Jolla. And at the time, I was living in La Jolla, raising my children in La Jolla. And it was a form of yoga that we don't know, I hadn't heard of before. It's called Svarvupa.
Oh,
and
not familiar.
I took that for 10 years till Rama Birch. She had a studio in Massachusetts as well as here, and she decided to close up the West Coast and just go back to Massachusetts. But that 10-year practice is what healed me physically, emotionally, and soulfully. And it's that practice is what we call today is restorative yoga.
Ah, okay.
Yes. And so,
okay.
Yes, fully propped, lingering in positions, fully propped for 5 to 10 minutes to organically open the body and reconnect with the body and build tolerance for discomfort.
Wow.
So, and that's the basis of trauma-informed yoga, that it's, it rests on several pillars, one of which is we use invitational language. So we invite you to come.
I love that.
And we'll give you multiple modifications to make. So nobody, so that everybody has a successful experience.
I love that.
And we do not have hierarchy, because people who are trauma survivors, they got usurped of their power, their decision.
Mhm.
They were robbed of a say in what was going on in their life. So we're
Yeah.
not in charge of anyone. We empower all of those before us. So we're either in a circle,
I love it.
or we have our backs to walls and face one another, so no one has to watch their back.
I love it.
And we wear loose clothing. We don't show skin. You know, this is not something for us to, that's not respectful to those that we serve.
Mm.
And we stand on the best practices that were discovered in the late 90s. So our work sits on the best practices of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score.
Know that book. Yep.
Yes, David Emerson and Elizabeth Hopper and Peter Levine. They discovered, Bessel van der Kolk discovered in the late 1990s, he was a trauma therapist or psychiatrist. And after talk therapy for 5 years, people weren't getting better. And so they did some studies and had this breakthrough of, they found that we're genetically predisposed through our heart rate variable marker that we're born with.
Okay.
So that, which kind of explains, if I come into this world genetically with a low HRV,
okay,
my resilience to things not going my way is lower than the average bear.
Interesting.
So they discovered that trauma can only be released somatically through the body. It's in our muscle, our tissue, our nerves.
Yep.
And the more we talk about it, the more it gets imprinted in the brain. So we want to, yes, go there when we build up enough tolerance for discomfort and let it go.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
this is a very unique process that's gaining a lot of momentum now, especially now the majority of us have been traumatized by the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, 70% of all adults in the United States reported suffering from trauma. 70%.
I believe that. I believe that. I just recently saw someone's Instagram post, just to jump in with a quick comment here. And it was, you've experienced trauma if you've had any of these things happen to you. And there was a list of maybe 10 or 12 things. And I hate to say it, but like, I identified with 5 or 6 of them, or, 4 of them. And I wasn't beat as a child, or, didn't have sexual abuse, but there was a lot of other things that count as trauma. And so I'm almost surprised that number's not higher. I totally can see all of us, so many of us have trauma and we don't even realize it. And that was one of my things, that I was brought up, you just go on, you just suck it up, and you have, I was one of 6 kids. There's things to get done. There's responsibilities. And so I stuffed so many emotions, and the little traumas that I had growing up were stuffed for sure. And I love even more hearing you speak about what you do. And I know the power of the work that I've done and how that's helped me to release things, reconnect with my body, and how important is it that everybody has access to that work, which is part of what OG Yoga is here to do, is provide this to everybody.
Yeah, it's our work to remove all barriers to access.
I love it.
We partner with other nonprofits that are already serving our marginalized or vulnerable populations. So we go onto their turf.
Yeah.
We bring the mats, we bring the trauma and diversity informed instructors. And yeah, we were on site with Project Aware yesterday. We're there every Wednesday. This is a nonprofit, for example, that was started by Reginald Washington, who his life work after serving a life sentence, a gang-related life sentence himself, he got out, his life work, his calling was to get kids out of gangs.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're with his
Wow.
kids
That's
weekly.
amazing. That is amazing.
And
Right.
that gets funded through Save San Diego. This is just so brilliant that they get state funding. I'm seeing in my lifetime now that there is a restorative justice development happening. So for the very first time, I'm feeling more positive than I ever have felt
Wow.
about restoration versus incarceration, and just
Yes.
feeling
Yes.
so
Well, I mean, even that question, and it really just kind of pinged me when you were applying for the school job, and he said, "Well, do you think this is something you're going to fix in your lifetime?" And you're like, "Well, no, but how?" uh, It speaks to, I think, an attitude, or at least this is how it hit me, is it speaks to an attitude of there's nothing I can do. And it's such a big problem. It's overwhelming and impossible to solve, which is why I love what you have committed to do, what you signed up, what you are all in for is making your mark, doing, yes, you see the big problem, but then you're focused on, this is my best way to serve. This is what I am feeling called, the contribution I'm feeling called to make. And you are like, almost like blinders on, I'm going to do this. Right. And I tell me, like, because it is, and I can't even imagine when you start looking at all the numbers and statistics, which I haven't looked at, it can be overwhelming. So, how do you, is that a fair description? You just, kind of keep it focused, and how do you support yourself when things get overwhelming?
Yes, and there's two bags to unpack in that question.
Okay. I throw a lot in sometimes at one
Yes,
time.
two carry-ons to unpack.
Uh,
And one is, yeah, I can get, like I said earlier, intense fear.
mhm.
I have personal financial fears, and future financial fears. And then the bigger Joann shows up and says to the scared Joann, what's the price you're willing to pay to get this done?
Wow.
Mhm.
That's a big question. It's a powerful question.
Yeah, and sometimes I sit with it. It's okay if we don't have the answer, because the
Yeah.
mystery's in the question, not the answer.
Mhm.
And I've sat with questions sometimes for 1 hour, 10 minutes, maybe 2 years. I've sat with a question. We don't want to rush the answer because we want it to be authentic.
Yes.
For us. So I always come back to, this is priceless. This is priceless.
Yeah.
And that I feel that I have two legacies. One is my personal legacy, my children who I adore, and they're wonderful, self-sufficient human beings. And my friends and family. I'm blessed to have just a sacred circle of wealth within family and friends.
Yes.
Yeah. I've had to really redefine wealth.
I love how you're framing this.
Redefine what wealth is. And my practice. So one of the limbs of yoga is concentration. That's a whole big limb. And so there are days where my 5 devices around me are buzzing and off the charts, and people to help and problems to solve and content to write.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that concentration is a huge limb. I've got it up on my blackboard.
I love it.
Yeah, it's Dharana. It's the 6th limb.
Okay.
So the first 3 limbs, so I use the 8 limbs of yoga to keep me on my path.
Got it.
I would suggest and invite anyone listening that this is everyone said we didn't get a roadmap or a how-to book for life. Well, I would propose that this is the roadmap or our GPS.
Fantastic. Yes.
So the first limb are our yamas, how we show up in community. You know, am I always being truthful? Am I not stealing? I don't want to steal someone's time. So I might, if I need to talk to someone, say, hey, do you have a few minutes before I go into? So showing up in community, how to show up for ourselves. One whole limb is contentment. How do we find contentment no matter what card we draw? That's a big one that I'm working on right now.
Okay.
And this is where discipline and self-study and devotion come in as well. So after niyamas is asana, or a physical practice, which is important. Strong body, strong mind. And and pranayama, our breath work. Anytime I feel anxious or overwhelmed, the first thing we teach at OG Yoga is the power of self-regulation via our breath. So if you would, inhale with me to the count of 4 through your nose. Exhale through your nose, the count of 4. If you're comfortable, close your eyes and continue inhaling to the count of 4, audibly. Exhaling audibly through the nose to the count of 4. 2 more on your time, your terms. Slowly blink your eyes open if they were closed. That's pranayama, life force. And it's so simple, but we all forget. We all forget to breathe.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. We do forget to breathe. And over time, for me, I feel like I talk about this a lot. I was living in my head, and I think part of that was these shallow breaths that just kept me up here. And as I started doing some very simple breathing practices as part of prior to meditation or just to reset, wow, it really helped me to reconnect with all of me, which is, there's so much wisdom in our bodies. And going back to what you said, the listening part, and how we can activate that when we breathe into our body and we slow it down, get present, and then listen. So thank you for that practice.
Well, Christine, the one thing that all trauma survivors have in common is that, one, they're alienated. We are alienated from our bodies. 2, we're living in the sympathetic nervous system. We're living in that inhale, almost a hyperventilation.
Yeah.
Because when we use that to try to escape whatever trauma was
the
happening.
Fight or flight, exactly.
Fight or freeze. Sometimes
or freeze. Yep.
We play dead to not be found out.
Yes.
Or to not be hurt anymore.
Yes.
So learning to balance with that exhale, the rest and digest, and even within that time, use the exhale a little bit longer. It's a huge gift that we can empower anyone with, but especially trauma survivors.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Body.
Yeah.
And really exhale.
Yeah, just
really exhale.
I as we're talking, like my heart is just expanding with love and appreciation for the work that you're doing, the much needed work. And I'm so excited to be able to share your message, your journey, first and foremost, because you are an inspiration. And then secondly, the OG Yoga, the work that you're doing in OG Yoga. So I would love to have you share a bit about who is Joann today compared to, you can go back as far as you want. You could go back yesterday or a year ago, 10 years ago, given what you've embodied with the 8 limbs of yoga and this lifestyle, these practices, using this as the 8 limbs as your guidepost, saying yes to your calling. There's a lot going through your cancer journey. Like who have you become and who do we want to celebrate today?
Thank you for asking. I'd say that my life has really been in three stages, like a 3-act play. And the first stage was all about education, and creating a career in my life. So I was in my head a lot. I excelled in school. I have a master's in business administration. I was, and I still am a recovering type A. I was, and I still am a recovering workaholic. I'm comfortable in those spaces.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable in learning and understanding what was going to be asked on an exam and providing what I felt was going to be asked, which made me a great grant writer later on.
I bet.
I got to Act 3 or Act 2, you know, so I was into, I was quick to get angry. It was easy for me to go into blaming and shaming myself as well as others. So Act 2, when I kind of that space of childbirth and taking that step from corporate to consulting to get to the nonprofit sector and raising children, you know, having children just really broke my heart open. You know, just like love. No, there was this much love.
Yes.
And you know, focus on family and raising children, you know, as a single mom and a working single mom, and learning patience from that, and learning more self-compassion and compassion for others in my nonprofit work, learning that going from, yeah, you did the crime, but you get the time kind of mentality to, oh, maybe we could give a second chance. Maybe someone ended up in jail because that's where his uncle's father's grandfathers are.
Yeah.
You know, what if we change systems? Yeah, so that was kind of the next stage.
Okay.
Opening up to, I think something's wrong systemically. And then the last chapter with OG Yoga is coming back to OG, original greatness.
Oh.
Yeah, we all have it in our heart center. And this is where we bring people back to live. This is where our unconditional love and forgiveness for ourselves reside. Yeah. So the more that we can, this is where I'm at today, the
Beautiful.
more that I can unconditionally love and forgive myself is the extent that I can offer it to others. My only job is to transform myself. Yeah. As I transform myself, I transform the universe.
Yes.
So this is individual work. This isn't, so our teachers that we train, we have an Overcoming Trauma Through Yoga teacher school. Some people don't make it through the school because we get triggered of what our own traumas, as you talked about, you know, we get the light goes off, and first and foremost, we have to do our own work.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. So coming in and, you know, in doing our own work is where I feel I just really want to empower others to use the tools like breath work.
Yeah.
And some physical rhythmic movement, you know, just even simply inhale, arms up, exhale, arms down, inhale, arms up, twist from the outside of the waist, take a spinal twist, massage those internal organs.
That feels good.
Inhale, arms up, let's go the other way. Exhale, twist the other way, getting into the internal organs that are so important for our well-being. Inhale, arms up, Hands at Anjali Mudra, chin bowed in deference to this 5,000-year-old practice. It's both an art and a science.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Breath work, rhythmic movement, and guided meditation.
Yeah.
We have, we can tune in anywhere and get a guided meditation these days.
Definitely.
Yeah, that puts us into this shavasana or deep rest state of letting go. And we're not trained to let go of our image.
No, letting go was one of my life lessons. I've had one of my talks is about letting go and the key things I've let go of, and how we, and I was this way, and a lot of people I work with are this way. Just you want to control everything, and we've been taught to be self-starters, to be independent, to go for it. And we can do that, but I think that the old methods we were taught was you have to try and control everything to go your way to get the result you want. And that's so not true. So not true.
Yeah, the old me was into control. If I planned hard enough, if
yes!
I convinced enough people, if I practiced enough. But control, I would invite everyone to consider simply an illusion.
Yes, for sure.
And,
for sure.
And the new me is aspiring for the last limb of yoga, samadhi.
Okay.
Which is just total detachment, which is very hard to do. It's unifying with something greater than ourselves. And the attachments we let go of. So that's work each and every day. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I want to speak to you, the sharing that you did of your journey in the 3 acts. I so love that. And I resonate with it so much. I think we have had very similar journeys, and I feel a kindred sisterhood with you. And I want to acknowledge you because you have consciously, you're doing this consciously. You've consciously stepped into being the creator of your life and seeing, not only just connecting with your calling and saying, I want to bring this to life, but what you said in that my responsibility is to transform myself. And in doing so, I transform the world. I say that we've seen quotes, we've seen stuff on social media, but when you speak it, like I get it even more. And so for everybody watching and listening, I hope that would be one invitation I make, and I love making invitations, is to really check in on, to what degree am I looking inward and doing my own work to remove the old conditioning, to heal those traumas, to step into my purpose and potential and power and make my contribution. So you are such a beautiful role model for women, for the world, for everybody really in how you speak and approach your life. So this is a beautiful conversation. I knew I would enjoy it, but it's really touching my heart in a way that I guess I had not anticipated. Oh.
Beautiful words, and directly light up my heart. And I love offering to anyone listening and you're following Christine, is this last chapter, if you're in it, we get to curate our final act.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big responsibility.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So, who are you going to bring in to collaborate this final act with? Do you have the right people on the bus with you?
Yeah. Right.
In the right positions to be of support to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's we can take it to the nth degree in terms of mindfully imagining our third act.
I love doing that. Yes. I call it creating your radiant reality. Yes. And it takes us pausing, I call it getting off the hamster wheel or getting off the treadmill, stepping back and really connecting with where am I at now, and feeling into it. And I love that you speak to the facing that discomfort. It's something that I definitely am all in for. And that was a big switch for me to not face the discomfort. So we get off that treadmill. Part of taking that look includes seeing it will be uncomfortable, right? Because
Yes.
we're
I
avoiding
promise
things.
you. I promise
Yeah.
you.
And at the same time, and I shifted my relationship with discomfort. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because it is then allowing me to, it's for me, it was like an energy to be able to then let go of those things that were no longer serving me. And anything where I was feeling and experiencing pain, to me, meant I was out of alignment with who I truly am. And again, because I was holding on to an old belief, there was trauma or healing I still needed to do. And so part of that journey, and you talk about self-love and compassion, there's a few key ingredients. If you have those with you, it makes that journey, I like to say, it makes it more joyful. And there's a lot of synchronicity and serendipity and beautiful moments that happen that you never would have imagined.
Absolutely.
Have you experienced that yourself?
I've experienced it myself, and I've been honored to be asked to attend different groups to speak, and one of which was the Suicide Prevention Council. San Diego County for their annual stakeholders meeting. And one thing that we practice at OG Yoga, that is the best practice that we stand on, is conscious relationship, meaning I may not have experienced what you directly experienced, but I can go in and learn about that and have not only sympathy, which means I can feel for you or for you in a certain
sympathy. Yep.
And then there's empathy, which means I feel with you. You know, I'll get down in the bunker with you, climb the ladder down, and I'll sit with you down in that bunker, and empathy. And then there's also a level of compassion, which you have the empathy, so you're with them, but you also want to help relieve suffering. And
Beautiful.
so in practicing and being committed to conscious relationship, I looked at suicide. And I looked at what did the science say about suicide and yoga.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yoga is being studied in relation to almost every disease and issue, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And there's a study that actually supports the spirituality component of yoga to help those who have ideated on suicide.
Wow.
Really.
Wow. That's good to hear. That's good to hear.
It really, from starting in, a topic that, is very dark, it gives some light. And I was honored to give this light to this group because we teach something bigger than ourselves. Something, in yoga. And
right.
It's different for everyone. For someone, it could be nature. It could be,
right.
Yeah, it could be anything. And we teach self-love. We teach compassion. We teach forgiveness for ourselves. So as we bring these teachings out, and we bring community.
Yeah.
So
wow.
I was subbing for one of our teachers teaching, and community is really big because people ideating suicide or who are alienated from their bodies and from community because of trauma, we do better in community when we're with others. I was subbing at Via de Vida. It's this beautiful nonprofit that houses and provides activities for developmentally disabled adults. And we're outside at a park, And we were doing our rhythmic movement. We were doing the warrior series. Inhale, lunge, exhale, straighten the leg. And we're in a circle. And we're in this park in Poway. And I could feel the reverence of people, even with children, small families walking by, they would grow silent. And you could feel the community.
Beautiful.
Of these and there's so much joy in developmentally disabled adults and children.
Yeah.
And when you bring the breathing, self-regulation,
Beautiful.
and movement and community, it goes a long way. And then of course we have very specific heart openers. So if you want to join me, inhale, arms high. Exhale, make gold pulse, send those elbows and shoulders back, open the front of the heart. Exhale, palms together. Anjali Mudra. Any of our heart openers help with anxiety and depression. So
I did a lot of heart opening meditations. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
wow. Joann, this everything, and your stories, I know we could sit here for a day together and record all this. I don't want to cut you short.
Well, we have two days coming up that everyone can join us in.
I know. I'm going to post, again, this won't air for a couple weeks, but I'm going to post a clip out of this so people know. I would love to, two more questions. I would love to get your definition, because this is the Radiant Achiever show, and I know how I define it, but I always love asking my guests, how would you define, what does being a Radiant Achiever mean to you?
Being a Radiant Achiever comes back to knowing myself, being in self-inquiry, asking myself the tough questions like, what's my tolerance for risk? That's a big question. And if, as I decided to curate my final act, I had to address what's my tolerance for financial risk.
Yeah.
Or any kind of risk,
Right.
Just going out on that ledge, if I build it, will they come?
Right. Right.
What's my tolerance for? At the very beginning, I knew we wanted to demonstrate partnerships and community, then come out with our own school, then come out with participating community wellness, hosted events, and then open our own studio. So I knew there were 4 programs to be rolled out, and I knew it would take 5 or 6 years. No, I did not know there'd be a pandemic. I did not know that there'd be a social revolution. So knowing that I don't know what I don't know, and couldn't have even predicted those things, it's important to come back and say, what's my tolerance for achieving my radiance awareness? Yeah.
Beautiful.
I really think this balance, there's always shadow and dark. And if we're only looking at the light, shadow and light, if we're only looking at the light and saying, oh, well, I'll build it, they'll come, somehow something will work out. It's my turn that something works out for me. That's not a good strategy. I would suggest to you, for me, that wouldn't be a good strategy.
Okay.
So really look at how long, what's it going to take?
Yes.
And who am I going to need by my side to do this? And so really looking, I think, isn't that what radiance is? That if you take that diamond in the light, it's going to radiate different things no matter how you turn it. So consider that you're the diamond and you've got all these facets.
Yes. I've never described it that way, but I love the analogy. Absolutely. So really it comes back to knowing yourself and being able to, I want to say, how I say it is like, stand in that, right? Like to own who you are, and really be, and then I said, but then you said at the same time, if you're looking at like your risk tolerance for certain things, that's looking at, I think, a bigger picture than maybe how I would describe it. And I really love how you bring in, because we're bringing these things to the world, right? We're bringing our gifts to the world. We're bringing ourselves to the world, and how do you want to navigate that? So
Yeah.
beautiful.
And sometimes it's appropriate to say, geez, I'm just going to go out there and see what happens. This is an experiment for 9 months.
Yeah.
Knowing yourself enough to know that, okay, I'm going to see what happens within 9 months and then come back and pivot. That's a big word in starting our third and final chapters. Anyone who's in that is one thing that I've learned to really radiant awareness and is pivot. Just bring to market a taste of what you want to do, because if you can stay in incubation forever, afraid
Yes.
of not perfect. Well, there's no such thing as perfect. And
Right.
there's the environmental issues. Take one aspect and come to market with it, or come to family with it, and try it out. And based on your findings, pivot. So I've really become really flexible with pivoting.
I love that. I love that. And it really leads into my last question, which would be, and I think this would totally apply, somebody who's maybe on the fence, or they're in the early stages of following their calling and bringing it to life. What advice would you give them? And I heard you answer before I even asked the question, but you can certainly add more things, is bringing something, starting small, testing it out, stepping into it, but not throwing everything maybe in at one time.
And start with, what do you love? Do you love photography? I have a very dear friend who, in her last act, started dabbling in photography. And one thing led to another, and now she's this international photographer.
What?
Around the world.
Wow.
Filming situations and people that no one else has ever taken a look at.
Wow.
Yeah, so it started as a hobby. And so, and for me, yoga was, for her, it was photography. And for me, it's yoga. Just really like starting with, what do you love? What gives you light? What makes you radiant? And it's okay if you don't have the answer, just sit in the question.
Right. I love that too. I love that too, because we want to we feel like we need to have something come like now. If I sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, something better come to me. But I love that approach of, and you said it, so you had some questions you said, and for hours, weeks, a couple of years. Oh, the dog's going to start barking soon because
I understand. I have one.
The schedule guy. Yeah. So I love that, to ask the question and to be open to the timing of how and when you get the answer. I like to call it be in wonder and curiosity, and shifting to that versus having, getting the answer. But when I found I was in wonder and curiosity, then the answer came up out of me versus me trying to make something happen.
Yeah, I love that. And again, that's not something we're conditioned to do. And that's been a major pivot for me to what I call live in the holy mystery and be comfortable in the question.
Yes. A lot. So it's being comfortable in everything, right? Be comfortable in the discomfort, in the not knowing, in the saying yes, and seeing, stepping up to bring it to life.
Yeah. And I would invite for consideration that no is a beautiful word. That we can have boundaries. We can say, my window of tolerance isn't very big today. I think I'm not going to attend this function. I think I'm going to sit quietly at home today. No, you learn the power of no is also interesting, to be able to create a boundary if you're getting triggered and you don't want to react out of habit with somebody. You can say, I'm going to need a little space. I'm feeling triggered right now, and I really want to look at my side of the street.
Ooh, love that.
It's okay, but that's not what we're conditioned to do.
It's not at all. We have so many beliefs wrapped up into, I need to, they ask, so I should answer. I need to be responsible. We have to take care of things now. So I love that. I've gotten good at saying no for most things, but this other little twist to it, I see, I can say no more often and say why. So, Joann, you have, again, just this wealth of knowledge. It's very, to me, evident that you are walking the talk of what you teach, and truly, as a result of the work that you've done on yourself, now you are able to bring this forward in such a big way with a beautiful vision to help really shift and to help so many people heal from the trauma, which then will have that ripple effect in a positive way of reducing some of these other things that we're seeing go on in not just San Diego, but around the world. So thank you for what you do. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you for shining radiant awareness.
Oh, yes, glad to do it. It's my work. It's my work for sure. So, Joann, thank you again for being here. I can't wait to share this message with everybody. And for everybody that watched this, I encourage you to watch it twice. First, just sit and feel into everything that Joann has shared. Do the practices, the breathing and the movements that Joann walked us through, and then I encourage you to invite you to take some notes and really, as you listen, what are those nuggets that ping your heart, and that it may be a message for you for an area to take a look at. So how does that sound, Joann? Good advice?
It sounds absolutely perfect. And I wish you safe travels and adventures this weekend.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you. Everybody watching, thank you for being here with us. And I look forward to seeing you in a next episode real soon. Bye for now. Bye, Joann.
Bye, Christine.